Roll.
Okay. Commissioner Ryan? Commissioner Campbell?
Here.
Commissioner Blauer?
Here.
Commissioner Jewell?
Here.
Commissioner Cook Hawkins? Commissioner Sorensen? Commissioner Jordan?
Here.
Commissioner Wesley?
Here, we have a quorum. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Attorney Kelly Thompson to read the new, well, it's not new anymore, but
The
regarding
amendments, we can call it.
the amendment. yes,
Generally.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All boards and commissions must adhere to all laws established under the Michigan compiled laws and in accordance with the revisions of the Open Meetings Act adopted in Senate Bill 1108 as passed on October 13th, 2020 and signed into law on October 16th, 2020. A public announcement shall be made by each member who is attending the meeting remotely that he or she is attending the meeting remotely and stating his or her physical location. And Bill, if you could call the roll again, please.
Okay. Commissioner Ryan? Commissioner Campbell?
Commissioner Campbell, let me see. I can't read my own writing. From her
Okay,
resident remotely.
and from Flint?
Commissioner Campbell, resident of the city of Flint, remotely from her residence.
Okay. Commissioner Blauer?
Commissioner Blauer attending remotely from my residence in Flint, Michigan.
Commissioner Jewell?
This is Commissioner Jewell attending remotely from my residence in Flint, Michigan.
Commissioner Cook Hawkins? Commissioner Sorensen? Commissioner Jordan?
Commissioner Jordan attending remotely from Flint, Michigan.
Commissioner Wesley?
Commissioner Wesley attending remotely from Flint, Michigan. Okay, thank you. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly Thompson.
Yes.
I think we could add to possibly new business. There's been some changes with the governor's executive orders regarding gatherings, in-person gatherings. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly with the commission. So perhaps we could add that to new business, please.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda?
This is Jeff. Can we add voting on the capital improvement plan to the agenda? It inadvertently got left off.
Voting on the capital improvement plan. That be under new business?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. Wouldn't that be under reports?
I don't know. I guess they can go.
We have a
Okay.
report on the capital improvement plan.
Voting. Yes, on there, okay.
Yes.
Any other changes to the agenda? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Jordan, so moved.
It's been moved and properly, do I hear support?
Support.
It's been moved and properly supported. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Appears unanimous. I guess opposers have the same right, but anyway. Okay, we have minutes of January 26, 2021. The minutes of January 26, 2021.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell.
Yes, Commissioner Jewell.
And if we look for the minutes of January the 26th on page 1, on the bottom where it says additions and changes to the agenda, if we look under, it says add under case review SPR 20-942. That's regarding the status of the Greater Flint Mental Health Facilities. Again, that's the Greater Flint Mental Health Facilities. Mr. Chair, those are the only notations I had. The minutes are quite lengthy.
Okay. Are there any other changes anyone or additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of January 26, 2021.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 26, 2021 with correction.
It's been moved. Do I hear support?
Support.
It's been moved and properly supported. Roll for the approval of the minutes of January 26, 2020.
Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes, with correction.
Commissioner Cook Hawkins, Commissioner Sorensen, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes, the minutes of January 26, 2021 has been approved. Next, we have the minutes of February 23rd, 2021. There's one obvious one on page 2. Miss Brenda, that's Attorney Brenda Williams.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell.
Yep.
Again, if we go back to page 1, second paragraph from the bottom, and says Commissioner Jewell asked, and if we look at the 4th line, that should be capitalized, Greater Flint Mental Health Facilities. So that should all be capitalized, Greater Flint Mental Health Facilities.
All right, Rob.
Then on page 3, third paragraph from the bottom, says Commissioner Jewell asked if the fire marshal, it should be corrected as Commissioner Jewell noted the fire marshal.
Mr. Jewell
Requested.
noted.
Yeah, I noted that the fire marshal requested.
Okay.
Then on page 10, the last item, I-475, where it says update, no update was available at this time. We all remember that Mr. Wesley, our chair, noted activity regarding the I-475 committee via public news media, has not been contacted by administration to review roles and responsibilities, and Kelly Thompson would follow up.
Where is that at?
It's not there. That's if you go to page 10,
Okay.
last item, it says I-475 update. And then it says no update was available at this time. However, there was a discussion in which Chairperson Wesley noted activity regarding the I-475 committee via public news. He has not been contacted by administration to review respective roles and responsibilities, and Kelly Thompson would follow up.
Sing. Hey, just a second here. You know, okay, all right. Are there any other additions or corrections to the February 23rd meeting 2021? Any other corrections or changes? Okay, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 23rd, 2021.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. I will make a motion to accept the minutes of February 23rd, 2021 as corrected.
Support.
Support.
It's moved and properly supported that the minutes of February 23rd, 2021 be approved. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I mean,
Aye.
roll.
Aye.
I'm sorry, roll. Bill?
Commissioner Ryan, Mr. Campbell,
Yes,
Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook Hawkins, Commissioner Sorensen, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes. Before we move on, I'd like to go back to our January 26th. It's a small correction that I missed on page 8 of the minutes. It says the Planning Commission, the first paragraph, the second line down, it says planning on closing on the lot Friday, the 29th. I think that's supposed to be February 29th, isn't it? Can anybody see?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay, that should be February.
Thank you.
I missed that. That's the only, I missed
Oh.
that one.
Just one question though, because there is no February 29th. So
Well, that's why Friday, January, this is, oh, it'd be January 29th. Sorry. Thank you.
January, yeah. January 29th?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I try to put some more days in February. What can I say? I knew it wasn't gonna be Friday. but
Mr. Chair, this is
Okay.
Commissioner Jewell.
Yes, Commissioner Jewell.
Just for the sense of process, unless there's any objections from the commission as a whole, we can accept your decision for that correction.
Are there any objections from the commission as a whole? Hearing none? So be it. Okay, next item on our agenda is public forum. The public is invited to take part on anything appearing on our agenda this evening. If there's anyone in the public wishing to address the commission, we will give you directions on how to do that. Are there anyone in the public wishing to address the commission?
There is no one.
No public, no one on the line, huh? Anyone in the public wishing to address the commission? Seeing none, that portion of the public forum is now closed. Any site plan reviews? None.
No site plan reviews, Commissioner Wilson.
Okay. Case reviews. SPR 20-91941, Sylvester Broom Empowerment Village is requesting a site plan review at 4119 North Saginaw Street, PID 4636428-059. Have we got anything on that? Bill?
Well, they have not updated anything on Sylvester Brim as of yet. So there was some conditions in the motion. And we haven't received, the only one thing that they did do was close on the lot, but I don't have
Yeah.
documentation that closed on the lot, but we do not have a revised site plan as of yet.
They did close on the lots.
That's my understanding, but I do not have documentation to that effect.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell.
Okay, go ahead.
If my memory is correct and according to our minutes at last meeting, correspondence was, or contact was to be made with the applicant regarding the status of updating documents. Has that occurred?
Yeah, yes, it has. And the documents are not prepared. The site plan is not prepared at this time.
Okay.
Okay. What is the desire of the commission as it relates to SPR 20941? Do we want to keep it on the agenda? Move it to upcoming meetings or what?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. This was originally addressed at our December 8th meeting, in which January the 12th, the applicant was to provide additional information or clarification. At our last meeting on February the 23rd, we did review that. Staff was to make contact regarding status from the applicant as to the updated documents. Staff has shared with us that they have made contact. It appears that we're in limbo, so maybe there is a need to, it's my understanding that I thought a deadline was set to have that information submitted.
This is Commissioner Jordan. I guess I maybe had a slightly different interpretation. I understand we wanted to have updates and receive those updates and keep it on our radar. I'm not aware of any, firm deadline or any such thing by which the conditional approval would lapse. Other than I think that usually after a site plan's approved, there's what, about a year's time that they have to begin construction on a project.
Yeah,
And
I don't.
if you don't mind,
recall a deadline either, but go ahead.
Commissioner Wesley, Bill Vandercook,
Yeah, Bill.
talking to Doug, there's still site work engineering, like for the plan that's taken place based on the conditions. So that's what he's still working on.
So we want to set a date to visit this again?
It should, Bill Vandercook, Commissioner West, should be able to resolve it within a month.
So we want to go all the way out to April?
I would say yes.
What about our second meeting in April? If something comes-
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell.
Yeah,
If we go to our first our first meeting in April is April the 13th, which will be a month from now
Mhm.
for us to re-review versus April the 27th.
so we're looking at April, what was that, 13th?
Correct.
Are there any objections from the commission to move this for review on April 13th, 2021?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Campbell, will we be notifying the applicant about that, or is this something we're just gonna hope that they remember to bring or know to bring? I think they should be notified.
I wonder, could we send them an email, Bill, so we have some
Yeah.
in writing that we did reach out?
Yes, we will, tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Jordan said that they still had a year, right? Commissioner Jordan?
Well, we're talking about in order to start building or something.
I thought she said they had a year in order to come back. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know of any specific timeline off the top of my head that's, in the regulations around how long somebody has in order to complete the conditions for a conditional approval.
Right.
I know that I believe it's a year period that people generally have between a site plan approval and when they begin the work. So I would defer to staff to get into the nitty gritty of the zoning ordinance with that. But my thought would be that, it lapses in a year's time from when it was approved.
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly Thompson.
Yes, Kelly.
I don't know this answer off the top of my head. My instinct is agreeing with Commissioner Jordan, but I can look this up right now and get back to the commission as the meeting progresses to see if
Okay.
there is a firm deadline.
I don't know if we've ever set a firm deadline on a conditional use because it usually come through fairly early.
Right, and I think the commission has the option of setting a date when they initially grant it and make the motion. But with one not being included for this case, then
Yeah.
I'll check and see if the ordinance says anything about it, but I don't think it does. So I'll get back to the commission on that.
Okay, we'll move on then. The other item on our case review is PC 21393. BNC of Flint Incorporated requests a Group E special regulated use permit for a medical marijuana facility at 533 Richfield Road, PID 4732 426-035. Bill, what is the status of this?
Commissioners conditionally approved BC on the applicant revising his executive summary to remove
Club
items
Med?
for group that weren't, remove the business plan from Club Med and put a business plan for BC Flint, and to remove items for a group F. He is applying for a group E. The applicant has met those conditions. I reviewed his new application today.
So he have reviewed and updated his application, right?
Yes, he has. And I reviewed it today in the office.
Okay. Is there anything else regarding PC 21393 BNC Flint of Flint Incorporated request? Bill, does that go for PC 21394 also?
Yes, it would, Commissioner Wesley.
Okay. So those two are cleared. They're conditional. So they should be cleared for approval then. Do I need to come in and sign anything?
I don't believe so. I think the commission
Said administrative.
approved it, and he's supplied the documentation. Do you want to note that in the record somehow that he supplied the documentation? I'm not sure if a motion needs to be taken, or you need to sign off on the actual application they left at the office. Yes, maybe that's a question for Kelly.
This is-
Go ahead,
Go
Kelly.
ahead. I was just going to ask, this was a conditional approval, right? So it was for administrative review and final approval?
That is correct.
So I think just updating it in this open meeting is sufficient. I don't think there needs to be another vote or a motion or
Right.
anything like that.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, this is
Yes,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Jewell. I would just recommend in the minutes that a specific notation be made that the applicant fulfilled those requirements.
So noted. That's for both PC 21393 and PC 21394.
Correct.
Okay, so noted. Moving on, there are no public hearings. Next is reports. To go into Assistant City Attorney Kelly Thompson, status of permanent marijuana ordinance.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As the commission knows, City Council approved 5183 12-95, and I affectionately refer to them as the 5161 through 169 batch of ordinances. So all of the proposed marijuana ordinances have been approved. We have daily meetings with myself and planning and zoning staff to implement the checklist and the application materials that are necessary to administer those new ordinances. So we are in the process of doing that. And actually, just as of yesterday, the state issued their first distribution of the tax revenues. So the city received approximately $84,000. Wasn't it like $84,005? I think that was the exact amount. And so that is limited to adult use retail facilities. That was one of the, Reed told me, Reed refers to it as an Easter egg that they planted in the MRTMA that cut off the city's ability to collect tax revenues for medical marijuana facilities. So that 84,000 is exclusively adult use retail facilities that were in operation as of September 30th of 2020. So that's the calculation there. And so I'm working with Suzanne to figure out where those funds are to be allocated and setting up a separate fund for those tax revenues. So
Kelly, as I understand it, those funds are not earmarked for, it's just going into a general fund, or are they going to be earmarked like for police or whatever, or for inspections? What?
That's the ultimate question, Mr. Chair, that you've got right to the head of it. I think it's open for discussion at this point. And the state law only requires that the licensing fees, that $5,000 annual license fee, that is allocated specifically for administering the licenses. So that's the only specific designation that state law set forth. So what we do with the tax revenues, I think, is an open question.
Okay. Kelly, while we have you, we had discussed the meeting with council people 2-on-2. I don't know, some, not any pushback, but some commissioners might have some concerns.
Mr. Chair.
Messaging.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. I'd like to still go back to the marijuana.
Okay,
item.
Commissioner Jewell, go ahead.
Yeah, at our last meeting, there was a discussion regarding, I'm going to refer to it as inappropriate zoning districts that were included in the ordinance. And that Kelly was going to give us an update on the process to reconcile that. Could we get an update on that?
Yes, Mr. Jewell, there are, Commissioner Jewell, excuse me. Those zoning designations, that's in 5169 for the special regulated uses. That's an amendment that still has to be made. So that's something that we have planned, and I think we were hoping to get the first 6 articles of the zoning code adopted before we did that and kind of put it in the mix with those ordinances. So that's still happening. And that, as I think I reported at the last meeting, that will come to the Planning Commission first.
Okay.
So those amendments will come to you before it goes to City Council. And I think we're still just trying to figure out the best way to do it, since we are bringing the zoning code to them at the same time. So I will put it on my to-do list to hopefully have, if not the amended ordinances presented at our next meeting, then at least a final plan for how we're going to do that.
Speaking of the zoning code, I guess it's not any confusion, but some concerns as to the messaging in meeting with council.
Yes.
Well, you gonna say something, Kelly?
No, I was just listening.
Oh, okay. Meeting with council, like commissioners, two commissioners meeting with,
Right.
along with the Attorney Thompson, meeting with two council people and discussing the zoning code. Given their, I don't know the messaging. I guess that's the problem. We want to make sure that we have a consistent message to council. And how do we do that?
Certainly.
And
Okay. I
Go
know
ahead.
that there may be concern about, if there's an appearance of lobbying or something for that legislation. Is that the concern that you're
guess
talking
some
about, Mr. Chair?
I guess some commissioners don't feel comfortable in meeting. I guess the problem here is that not a problem that we've done our job and it's up to them to do their job, but
Sure.
I don't see them doing their job. Basically, and I don't know how we get that across without a problem, I guess. I don't know.
Mhm.
And
Well, and
don't know how
I certainly
commissioners feel
don't.
about
Yeah.
meeting with
Well,
council.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. I don't have
Go
a
ahead.
difficulty in sharing some of my concerns, which I know I had shared with you. And if that's okay, I can just kind of highlight a couple of key items, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Commissioner Joe.
Okay. Just as a process, if we look back to the process of the draft zoning ordinance, we, as a planning commission, to use our terminology, pulled all that together, compiled it together, voted on that, and then submitted that to city council. And there was some questions and concerns about the process of where we are and what we need to do. I know there had been some discussions in the past where, as a committee, our leadership, yourself and Vice Chair Jordan, would meet with the appropriate city council committee to review the concerns. Several things come to mind. One is the Planning Commission has already submitted its proposed zoning ordinance with documentation. Secondly, staff has also already informed the council of that. Third, it's my understanding there was a follow-up letter and email with clarification specifically regarding the issues raised about citizen input. The concerns that come to my mind, there is now question from city council in regards to seeking clarification to approve or not to approve. Well, that is the responsibility of the city council. We have done our work and we have submitted it. Some other clarifying items is administration and the mayor aware of the dynamics? And is city council and administration aware of the fact that the draft zoning ordinance is an integral part of the master plan? Thus, the planning commission, whose responsibility has been fulfilled. I do know that from my perspective, in meeting two commissioners with two council members for discussions, raises some concerns of perception, of protocol, of process, because according to our bylaws, our chairperson is the spokesperson for the planning commission. The planning commission has made a decision. I thought it was quite appropriate where Kelly raised the issue of the perception of lobbying. We also have the concern that if different different commissioners are meeting with different council people, what's being asked, what's not being asked, what kind of clarification is occurring and not occurring. Specifically, from a legislative perspective, we as the Planning Commission have already submit our recommendation. The Planning Commission is aware of the fact that months and months ago, I had a personal experience where I was at a city council meeting committee reviewing items being recommended by the Planning Commission, presented by staff, in which there was questions raised about what was occurring or not. I was asked from the audience to come up and to address the committee. I had shared with the committee that the Planning Commission had already submitted its recommendations, staff had already presented them, and it was not appropriate for me, since I was being asked what my perception was, it was not appropriate for me to speak on behalf of the Planning Commission because the Planning Commission had already voted and decided and passed its recommendations on. So I just share that as a process for us to make sure, and these are my words, not to muddy the waters, so that we're clear on our respective roles and responsibilities. According to the Michigan Enabling Act, it's the role, and I stand to be corrected if I'm misinterpreting it, it is my understanding that the Planning Commission is responsible for making recommendations to the legislative body, which is the City Council. City Council can then decide what it wants to do or not to do, or to seek additional clarification from the Planning Commission, not from individual commissioners, but from the Planning Commission, in which they can submit to the Planning Commission concerns or clarifications. It appears to me that we have done some of that effort and so forth. So I have concerns both professionally and in role responsibility of getting into individual kind of conversations versus the Planning Commission making its recommendation to City Council. So again, and administratively, are folks aware of what's occurring? So I won't end there, but those are just some thoughts and concerns that I've looked at. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners? Go ahead. Is that Kelly?
It is. I'm
Okay,
happy
go ahead.
to listen to other comments before I respond.
Any other commissioners have comments on this issue?
I'll just share that, and Kelly, Kelly and I emailed back and forth, and I copied you, Chairman Wesley, earlier in the week, just clarifying that I know that we'd received emails looking for scheduling of availability, and so I had conveyed that I do need to be careful about any perceived lobbying, and so I'm comfortable
Right.
being part of a conversation and kind of my vice chair role, supporting the chair if there's a meeting where folks are looking for information or clarification about the zoning code. But from a scheduling standpoint, it works better for me to know kind of when those meetings are going to be, because I'm going to have to take PTO from my job in order to fulfill that role. So it was more so from a scheduling standpoint, and just making sure that have my proper hat on when I'm doing that.
Okay. Commissioner Blauer?
I'm just listening to the comments made by Elizabeth. I do think that we have done our job, but I do believe it's kind of wishful thinking to kind of just sit back and hope something happens to move the process along. So I'm not sure what the right channel is to move the process along. And I think Kelly is doing an excellent job in planning staff of trying to get something done, but it's kind of grasping straws, trying to figure out what will work to get council engaged and have the conversation with or without us.
Yeah. I wondered, if council had questions, and I know we've been through this before, could we ask each one of them individually, maybe Kelly can or someone can, I don't know if we want to get into lobbying, what those questions are, would they put them in writing? And then maybe we can respond to them in some form or fashion if it bears a conversation. We can have a conversation with them. But listening to this council, after what went on last night with the water issue that they never gotten to, and they kicked that can down the road until the next meeting. It's going to be really interesting to see if they get to a next meeting. What we can do to get this thing off of the stalemate, or they just, they see it as not being important. I don't want them to put this off another 3 years and we just still hanging out there in limbo. I just don't want to do that.
Has
Okay,
there
Kelly,
been
I'm
any,
done.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Wesley, has there been any comment from the administration at all? From the mayor's office, from the mayor? Since he was part of kind of the initial master planning process, has there been any comments? Does anyone know?
This is Kelly Thompson. Most
ahead.
of my correspondence is through Clyde Edwards, the city administrator. And I haven't heard any encouragement or lack thereof. It's just inquiries about, like, they've asked me to prepare summaries of the first 6 articles. So they're seeking information from me, and I haven't heard anything from them as far as trying to push this through council or encouraging council to review it. I mean, I think that there is a disconnect between council and administration. So I'm not sure how much encouragement administration could do, as far as getting council to actually consider it and take it up on a given meeting. So I guess the short answer to your question is no.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell, how many new council people do we have? They're not really aware of what the zoning ordinance is. How many new ones do we have?
So this is Kelly Thompson again, Mr. Chair. I believe there are at least 3 council members who are new since the Planning Commission recommended the zoning code.
Okay.
That would be, who? Would that be Davis?
Well, Davis was not in that 3. I was thinking of Councilwoman Worthing, Councilman Griggs, and I believe Kate Fields is new since she wasn't this past election, but the one before that. I think she was new then.
But Davis
Mr.
took
Chair,
over. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. Just for informational purposes, there is city council elections this fall. There are people that are already in the process of determining whether they're going to run for re-election or not, and some may or may not, and there are others who are taking a look of running for this fall. And my understanding is we may again get ourselves into the same scenario. So, Mr. Chair, I agree with you. It's been over 3 years since we submitted our recommendations, and I'm in agreement with you. Yes, it's a struggle, it's a challenge. What are the opportunities? But it's still a legislative process.
Mr. Chair, if I could respond, this is Kelly Thompson. I'm sorry to cut
Go
you
ahead.
off.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I just wanted to say, and I haven't really responded to the comments in general. I certainly do not want to ask you guys to do more than you should. I understand that you're going above and beyond already, and the zoning code should already be adopted and in effect years ago. So I recognize that I am asking a lot of you guys in meeting with council. My only reason for suggesting that is because I didn't want to have even one commissioner sitting on another council meeting, for the regularly scheduled meetings, because that takes hours and it's very exhausting. So I propose this as an alternative to that. And another reason for wanting you guys to provide some information to council is because the staff right now was not involved in the drafting process. So if we had any of the staff that we had when it was drafted, then I think we'd feel more comfortable in presenting it to council on our own. But I'm pretty new to it, and so I just, your role in this whole process would be strictly informative, just to explain to council what the ordinance says, and giving them some information about the input from the public that was gathered when it was being drafted. So I just know all the hard work that you guys put into it when it was being drafted, and I want council to be aware of that too. And I'm just not, I don't have that knowledge to share with them on my own. I mean, I can read off a memo and tell them, when public input was gathered, but can't give them the substance of the conversations. So.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Joel, and Kelly, you're correct, and I appreciate that endeavor. The lack of historical knowledge sometimes can be, the challenge. And I guess in order to fulfill that endeavor, I mean, both our chair and our vice chair were both integral parts of the entire master planning process, as well as the entire draft zoning ordinance process, as well as the preparations of such. So as a body, I mean, we do have that continuity of information. We do have that consistency of continuity and so forth. I mean, it already exists. I'm at a loss of what my role as an individual commissioner, or Carol Ann Blowers or Leora Campbell's, would be in having an additional conversation with individual council persons, because from my perspective as a planning commissioner, I'd be saying, yes, this is the documentation, this is the information, this is the corresponding endeavors. And so I'm trying to put this into a process of governance, because you did raise the issue of lobbying, which I didn't necessarily think of, but there can be that particular concern, but there can also be the concern of perception. I may use certain kind of terminology or words to describe what we went through or what we accomplished or whatever it may be, and somebody else can interpret that totally different because of the manner in which I use certain words, which my fellow colleagues are well aware of. So I want to minimize any of that for any of us. That's why in our bylaws, we have a scenario where the chairperson acts as the spokesperson for the planning commission. So again, I just share that.
Yeah. This is Commissioner Jordan, and hearing all that's been shared, yes and yes and yes, both it's sounding like that we're actually not that far away from each other. That realistically, there's going to need to be some manner of presenting information to council members in a way that is digestible to them, that allows them to have questions that they might have answered to about the zoning code. And those are factual questions, those are informative questions. And so I think that lobbying is a legal term, it has a specific meaning. And it basically means you cannot tell somebody that they should vote for something, but you can certainly provide information about this is what it means, or this is what the process entailed. And however we present information and respond to the questions that council members have, I think we're all of one accord that we're on the informational side of things, not the lobbying side of things. What I mentioned in terms of my job is just an extra precaution I need to take. It's one thing to have meetings as a resident at 5:30 at night. It's a different thing if these are going to be scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But
Sure.
that's the personal thing that I gotta, steer clear of. Part of what I'm hearing here is that for a variety of reasons, it probably makes sense for however these meetings take place, whether it's in a council committee meeting or if it's smaller meetings outside of that, I'm hearing that Chair Wesley makes sense to be involved because he is our spokesperson and our leader, and that's part of his role. I had been prepared to be part of the council meeting for the night that it was on the agenda in my role as vice chair, and because Bob asked me to. And so, I'm willing to to fulfill that kind of sidekick role based on the role and function that I have as vice chair within the group. And to me, it sounded like it probably makes more sense to go that route in terms of having 2 designated kind of team leaders from our group be consistent there, so that there's less chance of it being perceived as kind of individual efforts, and makes it a little easier to make sure we're all speaking the same language when it's the same people delivering it each time.
I agree.
Okay, I wonder, could we touch base individually with council people and ask them specific questions they might have concerning the zoning code?
Absolutely.
And get those, and then we can prepare a message to address those questions with each individual council person.
Yes.
To go that route, to say,
Yes.
Can we get, I don't know, just to touch, with Clyde, I don't know if Clyde Edwards would be the person to say, okay, Clyde, could you ask council just to keep it on their radar, to let them know the importance of getting this thing passed?
Mhm.
Just to
Yeah.
touch base, say, hey, what questions do you have concerning the zoning code? And it can't be a generic thing. Well, I just got questions about this thing. Well, what are they?
Right.
Well,
Well, one option along the lines of what you're saying, Mr. Chair, I could simply tell council in the next meeting where this is on the agenda, I can simply offer it up and say, the chairman of the planning commission is available if you have questions. Just offer that up in general, just so that they know that there is that opportunity and there's that opening to ask questions. And if it's just you, or if we've got your sidekick available too, whoever wants to make themselves available, then I can provide your contact information offline, not in the open meeting, and provide it to the council members so that they can call you, and put it on them, put the ball in their court to contact you if they have questions.
I'm not above if they have questions to say, I have questions. Well, hell, I'll contact them. Give me a number. I'll call you. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you.
Yeah.
We just need to get this sucker off the sidelines. They need to get in the game.
Well, and I don't know. I think that there's a lot of politics and dynamics behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, but they have yet to discuss any of the zoning code at all. They've postponed it a couple of times. They've moved it to committee meetings and then back to council, and they have yet to engage in any discussion on it. So I haven't even had the opportunity to say that we have planning commissioners available if there are questions. So, once we get to that point, I think offering that to them would be very helpful. I don't know how many of them will take advantage of that opportunity. But certainly if they have questions that they genuinely want answers to, then they should know who they can ask.
Okay.
Commissioner Wesley, Bill Van.
Yes.
We've had quite a few, and I say we, Commissioner Wesley, yourself, Commissioner Jordan, Suzanne, Jeff, Corey, Kelly, and myself. We've had quite a few meetings, just thinking about how to present this. And it was my recollection as we talked, we were going to try to do like an informational meeting, hopefully. We know that there's people that were here that had institutional knowledge, but we do have a master plan that there's an Imagine Flint website, and Commissioner Jordan brought this to my attention. The Imagine Flint website, it has the draft zoning code, and it has a lot of information, presentations, past history that we've talked about, where we can glean from. We've worked on with Commissioner Wesley and Commissioner Jordan to put together a presentation, hopefully for an informational meeting, one-on-one, not at different tables, so everybody's hearing the same thing. I'm not saying that's what should be done. I'm just saying there's been some meetings like that. We have the information. There's PowerPoints that are available, ready to use. And they've addressed on Imagine Flint website some hard questions that were raised in the past. And we could, look at those before. Not that it's not important to ask additional questions, but there's been some issues that I've heard brought up by council members that have actually been raised in the past that have been addressed on the Imagine Flint website. So going back to what I was thinking was going to happen was there would be an informational meeting trying to bring the council members together, re-inform them of the master plan, the zoning code, the need for the zoning code, the issues that we ran into before, how they've been resolved, and try to I would say get some buy-in, right?
So
move
Bill,
forward.
are you talking about the informational meeting being a public meeting?
No.
Or like with the whole group, or smaller meetings that are
Yeah,
outside of?
the whole council together in one meeting, trying to bring them together. When I first started working here, I think there was about 3 informational meetings on the draft zoning code in the chambers.
The problem with that,
had.
Bill, if we have all of the council members together, then we have to comply with the Open Meetings Act. It has to
Yeah.
be a public meeting.
Yeah.
Well, just to talk out loud though, I mean, hypothetically, I mean, we've in the time before COVID, we did things like community workshops.
Right.
It would, another avenue would be for us to be the host of the meeting. It could be a public meeting, and we could specifically invite council members to be part of that. And the purpose of it would be for us to, walk through the highlights, hear some common concerns we heard, here's how they've been addressed. Does anybody have questions? That, one, I don't know how many, if any council members would be interested in that, but that would be one way to make sure that there's a forum where we're not subject to somebody else's agenda.
Yes. Yes.
That's
I'm
Correct.
certainly
Good idea.
open for that. I don't know how the commission feels.
That's an idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's mull that
this
one over.
This is Commissioner Joel, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jewell.
As you may recall, the conversation we're having this evening, we've had a number of times before in the past.
Correct.
The concern is, and I'll go back to one, that is as a legislative process. I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Chair, is that if council has questions and concerns, yes, they can direct them to the Planning Commission, or they can direct them to you as the chair. You as the chair can make contact individually and so forth, because you are that spokesperson. I would ask the larger open question, if we set up a community forum, if we set up a series of things, the larger question then could be raised is, well, why isn't this draft zoning ordinance already approved?
Mhm.
Did not the Planning Commission already make its recommendations? What seems to be occurring? How do you respond to the scenario when it's been presented to City Council, and a number of times it's been taken off the agenda or not raised on the agenda? So I'm kind of moving back towards the scenario, as our chair pointed out, that if there are questions or concerns, fine, let's consolidate those through our leadership. Let's respond to that. And if council decides not, this is my individual view, decides not to fulfill their legislative responsibilities, then that's their responsibility. If someone were to ask me right now, Rob, what's happening with the draft zoning ordinance? It's been 3 years. And if I share with them the process that's been occurring, what would their automatic assumption be? Would it be the fact that the planning commission hasn't done its job or responsibilities? No. So again, I think we need to be very clear about role and responsibility, but there are avenues to be of support, and that is responding to the specific questions and concerns and meeting that. The other item is if there are certain individual items that people are not comfortable with, those can always be made in changes in the amendments to the zoning, the draft zoning ordinance. Just as Kelly pointed out regarding the permanent marijuana ordinance, where amendments need to be made. We need to be conscientious of, are we redoing the draft zoning ordinance process?
Well, we can't redo it because they haven't been approved yet.
I know.
So can't be amendments to it. So
And the
approve
planning
it and then
commission,
say,
and the-
approve it, and then we'll make the amendments.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking
Yes.
at a memo dated 3/8/2017. I'm not sure. I'm sure you remember it. It was drafted and it kind of has everything start to finish of what our process was. Throws out, public, who we consulted in the process. I mean, it's a whole list of things it's about 7 or 8 pages,
Right.
as well as summaries of each of the articles. So kind of looking at that, I was just wondering, there's kind of 2 questions. Does council, are there questions concerning our process or the overall kind of political scope of the zoning plan? Or do they have amendments or changes to specific, articles within the plan? Because I think those are 2 very different questions. Are they questioning the whole code itself in our process? Or are they questioning, they have one little critique that they're kind of stuck on? Because I think that kind of would be 2 different ways that we can get those questions resolved. You understand?
I think it's both.
It's both.
I think different council members have different feelings about it, but I know Councilman Davis has a particular concern about the GI1 district, the Green Innovation Districts. And I think it's just a simple misunderstanding about what the ordinance says and how it's to be applied. So that's just one example of one specific concern. And then I think other council members just have a general concern about the whole thing.
Because if it is a general, I mean, something like this, I know, Kelly, you've gone out of your way to provide information, but maybe a re-release of this memo or something similar to it.
Right. Could you email that
just
to me?
emphasizing that this wasn't just something that, sure. Yeah, I just found it on the Imagine Flint as we were talking.
Oh, it's on the website. Okay. If it's on the website, that's all I need to know.
It's on the website. Yes.
I think it's the memo that was originally sent by staff when we transmitted the
Yes.
resolution with the zoning code.
Right.
It's titled 2017 Resolution Memo, PDF, obviously.
Thank you.
And like I said, it's about 8 pages. It's a pretty in-depth process memo.
And like I said, we haven't had any substantive discussion about the zoning code at all in council meetings. So I haven't even had an opportunity to go into all of that. And like Bill said, we have a PowerPoint presentation prepared. We worked with Paul, their social media and publications guy. I don't know his official title. He's the one who streams everything. He helped us put it into a format where we can have it streamed on YouTube as we're having the discussion. So, I mean, we're prepared, and I think that we're armed with a lot of good information to share with council. It's just a matter of, oh, thank you, I just got your email. It was just a matter of having that opportunity and having the floor.
I think if we are making assumptions that lots of people have lots of questions about specific things, and we go into those conversations, more questions and concerns are going to come up, and it's going to kind of bog down the process. If it's simply, you know, I'm not sure if we, as planning commission, has done their job, and I'm leery about that. I think we could just re-emphasize, you know, all the hard work that went into historically what we have done to get to the point that we passed it, and not make the assumption that they have a lot of concerns about each article.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. And Mr. Chair, you made a suggestion about taking questions from council that the planning commission could respond to in writing. I like that idea too.
Okay, here's another thing. I wonder, could we just earmark that piece off the Imagine Flint website and send it to each individual council person, just that piece to each individual council person says, hey, please read this. Please read this.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, if you was to do something like that, since the marijuana is now finally finished, could possibly now the zoning ordinance be kind of put into its place now that marijuana is done?
That's what we've been trying to do.
I wish it could be that easy.
Yeah, I wish it was too.
I know it's not going to be easy, but the marijuana, I think, overshadowed everything when it came in. It overshadowed everything that we had done. So now that it's been taken care of and they've approved it, going forward, what do you know what they're going to be discussing in the meetings anyway? You have
order, point of order.
Yes.
Order, point of order.
Point of order. Well, they don't.
Order, point of order.
Point of order. But again, maybe zoning is something that you can put into that spot now that the marijuana is gone.
Okay.
I definitely think that council recognizes that the marijuana it was taking up a lot on their plate. So I think council is relieved that that's taken care of. Mm-hmm. But it never ceases to surprise me how long they can discuss one particular item on the agenda. So I don't think it's a question of, you know, they've freed up space on the agenda, so they should have more time for this. Their agendas are quite lengthy, and they get a lot of different requests from other departments for other city business. So I wish it were as simple as, well, marijuana is off the table, so now we've freed up more time in their meetings. Mm-hmm. They still managed to fill that time.
All right. You know, I think it's been a healthy conversation. And I think we have some things going forward to look at, but I'd like to get on to the next item on the report list. Any problems with that?
What is the next item, Mr. Chair? I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me.
It's with Suzanne, Director of Planning and Development, status of the draft zoning ordinance. I think we just covered a lot of that.
And I don't think Suzanne is in this call. I think she would have chimed in by now.
You know something? I don't think Suzanne like us. I don't think she likes us. Tell her tell Suzanne I'm getting a complex. Bill, tell Suzanne I'm getting a complex. I don't think she likes me. Okay. Do we need to deal with the status of the draft zoning ordinance? didn't we just? and
I
just
think we've
move on to
covered
the
that,
capital?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just say in conclusion to that, I wrote down all of the possibilities that we discussed tonight. So I will take this back to Suzanne and Angela, my boss, and they're more in tuned to the dynamics and the politics of council. So I want to hear what their thoughts are on this. But I think I have a very firm understanding of how the commission feels about this. And you know that I'll do whatever I can to make sure that this goes smoothly and that everybody's happy. So
thank you.
Kelly, I'm just so happy to have you in this fight with us.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Believe me.
thank
I
you. The
really
feeling
am.
is mutual.
And so I think Jeff is going to take care of the capital improvement plan.
Yes.
Okay.
It was my intention that that was going to go out in the packets this week, but I don't think that it did. But did everybody get a chance to look at the email that I sent prior to the last meeting?
Yeah,
I didn't.
I think I did.
Yeah, I just sent all that we updated were the tables.
Right.
So the information that we received, we didn't hear from every department, but when we got updates, I inserted them into the tables and noted it as new. And that was our plan this year, was that we would just update the tables this year, and then we'll start earlier on next year's update and try and do the actual text of the document as well. But I wanted to know if anyone had any questions on the tables that were updated.
I did not. Any of the commission have any questions concerning those tables?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. I did review the email item, and as presented at our last meeting, Jeffrey, thank you ever so much, that it was, I'll use the term, it was still an incomplete report. There was still information missing and needing for update, and that it was my understanding that at this meeting, we would get some additional information, and then we'd review and then take a look at where we go from here. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, there is no additional information to provide. There's been no other feedback given to me by any of the departments. So the report that was sent out the last time, that is the most up-to-date version.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, so the report, and just correct me, Jeffrey, so the report is still incomplete. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I guess the department heads been informed and reviewed that information is of importance and that it was to be submitted to the Planning Commission for action?
Yes, Suzanne sent out a couple of emails. I sent out a couple of emails. She has brought it up multiple times in the department head meetings that she has each week. We brought in finance to talk about it, and as they were going to the departments to talk about the upcoming budget, it was our understanding that they were bringing it up in those meetings as well. What I found is that responses that we got from outside departments generally were at the last second, and they were by folks who were like me, not here the last time, so they weren't really sure what this document they were being asked to update was. So I think we got a pretty good update from water and sewer. We got some updates from transportation. Obviously, Parks did a full update on theirs, and the housing section got a pretty good update from CED and the planning folks. But there are just some holes, like the Flint water crisis. There were only a couple of things that were updated by anyone on that tab. So that's why we want to start again this year earlier and try and pound this home. There's also now a new DPW director, so we're hoping with someone else in place that maybe we'll get a little bit better response.
Jeffrey, I appreciate the update. I'm still a little bit confused. If department heads are not submitting information, that's required of them to then, for the planning commission to review, which to see the capital improvement plan is part of the master plan. And I guess I'm confused why administratively direction is not given that those documents need to be fulfilled. Can you help me with that?
I will just repeat what I said at the last meeting, is that in this situation, I have neither the carrot nor the stick. So
The carrot or the, well, the carrot or the stick is, I mean, I know you're doing your job in the sense of collecting data and people are not getting you the data that you need. I understand that. And as such, you then in turn inform your administrator, you're not getting the data and so forth from other departments and any other organization, and therefore, and so on. Because for me as a planning commissioner, I didn't receive today a written statement saying, here's the same report that was submitted last meeting. We're still missing information from these particular departments, and this is our intent, because I have a notation here that you wanted to add something about voting on the capital improvement plan. And that raises the question of how can I, as a planning commissioner, vote on something that I don't have the most recent updated information with staff recommendations and status that's incomplete?
yeah, I think, well, again, as I tried to explain last week, we wanted to update what the updates that we have them, you guys look at them, if they're comfortable with them, accept those, and the rest of them are going to be removed from this section of the tables, or from this iteration of the tables, until we can get a full address of them.
Okay, well, I'll just ask my last question and turn it back to the chair. If you made reference of something to vote on, I'm not quite sure what you want to vote on. I don't have information to be able to be voted on. And from what I understand, the CIP is incomplete and supposedly department heads are not turning in the information. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the voting, it's my understanding, I've never worked with the capital improvement plan because the other cities where I worked didn't have one.
Correct.
But it's my understanding that in order for it to move forward, it needs to be updated, and the update needs to be voted on and approved by the planning commission. That's why I was bringing.
Right. And Jeffrey, I appreciate the work you're doing. I mean, I've worked for major organizational institutions in this community. I find myself a little bit at a loss, because if I was required as a staff person to get data from other departments and they weren't, and I've had this experience, weren't getting it, I had to pass that information on, and which passed on, and decisions were made, and then all of a sudden information was provided.
Yes, well, I mean, in that department head meeting every week that Suzanne is in, I mean, that is with the mayor and with Clyde.
Right. So I guess I could ask the question, is administration, Clyde, the city administrator, and the mayor aware of the fact that department heads are not submitting information to you as a staff person for you to do your job, to turn over a complete report to the planning commission for them to vote on?
That I can't answer because I don't attend those meetings.
Well, I'm not talking whether you attend those meetings or not. Jeffrey, I understand your concerns, okay? And I understand what appears to be a set of dynamics of people not fulfilling responsibilities, because that's what it comes down to. Mr. Chair, I think
You've exhausted that one?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I was just trying to collect information.
I understand.
And if the commission's not comfortable voting on it, I'm happy to report that back. I'll take that.
Jeff, I think what you've heard over and over. I don't know if we have anything to vote on because it's incomplete. I mean, if we're gonna leave out gaps,
Right.
and then how do we look going forward? How do we fill those gaps going forward? And there's no plan, if you will, going forward, how we're going to fill those gaps and get the information that you need in order to give us what we need in order to say we can vote on this and feel comfortable in doing so. Because we can't vote and have something that's incomplete. And when somebody come back and ask us a question, why did you guys vote on this? You didn't have such and such information. So I don't think there is going to be a need for a vote this evening on the capital improvement plan because it's incomplete at this time. Is any of the commissioners have any other, thoughts on this?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Campbell.
Sitting here listening to all of this tonight, I guess the larger question is, the current administration that we have anyone read the master plan? I mean, have anyone sit down and actually looked at the master plan and understand the importance of it? Because I would think after reading it, understanding the importance, understanding that the community came together on this, and now all of a sudden the administration is kind of lacking on it. Is the problem is that they don't understand that it wasn't just something that the commissioners did, that it was a total community project, and that maybe they should understand and look at some of the parts of that so that they understand what the community really want. It's not just us, it's the community. So my question is, how many have them read the master plan? How many
Commissioner-
have
Commissioner
Do you want me
Campbell,
to answer that, Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
Because I can't tell you how many of them read it. The way it seems, I don't think any of them has read it. So,
Oh,
you know,
well,
that
maybe
brings
that's
us back to that conversation we've had for the last 45 minutes, going back up to the
right.
zoning ordinance.
Right, and
So,
my
Miss-
question then, if none of them have read it, if none of them understand it, if none of them understand what the community as a whole wants, will we ever get them on board to understand what the importance? I mean, we can't move forward. What would happen is it was 50 years before we did one. How many more years is it going to be? And nothing is accomplished. So we need to have our current administration understand the business plan, and maybe they will then understand the components of it.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. To Commissioner Campbell and to you, Mr. Chair, our present mayor has read the master plan.
Is he the only one?
No, let me finish. And my reason for knowing that he's read the master plan was that he was city council member at the time. He was my city council person. He would get copies of the stuff. He would read the stuff. He would call me and ask for clarifications. People would call him and present certain things and so forth. And even when the master plan was presented to the city council, the night before, I received a number of calls from him on clarifications. And at that particular time, I am aware of the fact that he read it because he asked me a variety of questions. The tasks, I think, that is before us, and this is purely my perception, I may be purely incorrect, there seems to be gaps within the staffing process. Jeffrey has already done an outstanding job of reporting to us that he's not getting information back. There are gaps in the reports that he supposedly has passed that on to his administrator, but to this point, nothing has been done. So the question at hand that I have is, does administration, does Clyde and or the mayor aware of the fact that department heads or staff are not submitting information needed to be passed on to the planning commission for their action. And Jeffrey shared he can't answer that question. So my response then is, who can answer that question?
And also, if the mayor is the only one that knows about the master plan, then that may be where the problem is.
Or the other part is, my understanding is that when the master plan was passed, each council person got a copy of it. And at the same time, it still goes back to staffing leadership. Because Jeffrey, in his attempt to do his job, is not able to get his job done because department heads are not providing him information.
Correct.
And if department heads aren't providing him information and he says he doesn't have the carrier of the stick, I'm still a bit at a loss. He's making contact with department heads for information for a public body known as the Planning Commission that is needed to make decisions. And if those department heads are not fulfilling that, why are they not fulfilling of that? Why are those department heads, administrators not following up with them to follow up? It's not our role as a planning commission to determine staffing. I think it's appropriate for me as a planning commissioner to ask questions in regards to what is occurring or not occurring.
This is Commissioner Jordan. I would
Yeah.
note that, the primary purpose of the CIP relates to budget planning and having a single sense of here are the priorities and needs in terms of capital improvements that helps aid decision making with the city budgeting process and so on. I mean, I'm not queen of the world. If I were, I would, I'd be able to say nobody gets to put forward the capital projects, barring emergencies, unless it's part of the CIP. But that's not my role to manage that respect of it. But I think I recognize that Jeff is you're putting forth your effort and you're saying, that you don't have the clout in your current role in order to be able to compel information. I do think that if we're trying to pass the capital improvement plan that we haven't heard, it sounded like from fire and police and DPW and there may be other departments as well. Those are some pretty significant holes. I realize that there hasn't been an institutional practice of doing CIPs in Flint. That we did the first one following the master plan, and there was a little bit of a rhythm for a couple of years after that, and then it slipped away. And so I think it's it may be that the current department heads are not necessarily aware of the reason for the CIP. It's not just a check the box activity, is something that you have to do for the sake of doing it, but it has budgetary implications. So I would, I would certainly, if there's people within the administration, whether it's the chief of staff or the city administrator or whomever, who maybe is in a position to deploy some clout on behalf of this effort, and if our as a commission providing explicit feedback that we need the input from all of the departments in order to be in a position to approve a capital improvement plan, I'm happy to try to lend whatever clout we can to that effort to empower the staff to move forward with that.
Now, each department head has to present a budget to someone, don't they? Is that is correct? So why can't,
yes,
when they
Mr.
present their budget, they just, send it to for the capital improvement plan? And we put that information in, fill in the boxes.
Right, that's why we chose the timing that we did.
Yeah.
We thought that it mirrored up with the budgeting process. Now, I know Suzanne and I both went and looked at the budget that was sent to council to see if capital improvement items were put in there, but the document that I looked at was just really high level, expenses and expenditures, it didn't get into detail on DPW.
So they just put a number in there and that was it?
Yeah, it was the highest level.
Okay.
It didn't go into details on what things were planned.
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly Thompson.
Yes, Kelly?
I think if I could ask, and I know that Suzanne was off today, so that may be why she's not at this meeting, but it sounds like she might be the better one to address the commission and give them an update as to efforts made to get this information from the other departments. So I can make a specific request that Suzanne attend our
Okay.
next meeting and update the commission on that.
Mr. Chair,
Is
Mr.
that be
Chair.
efforts on, hold up, Rob.
Yep.
Would that be the effort on, made to
Obtain
get
the,
Go ahead,
Yes.
Kelly.
I'm sorry, I don't know if my headphones are breaking up on me, but efforts made to obtain the CIP information from each department.
Okay, see.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Maybe our attorney, Kelly, since she's doing such an excellent job, maybe she can try to, that $84,000.05. Maybe we can try to put that in a safe place for capital improvements.
Well, they haven't made a decision yet on where those funds is going, so.
Yeah.
We can
I
throw
don't know
that
who-
into the mix.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know who makes those
Might as
decisions.
well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there now. If we can get it now, maybe we can get it every year.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell.
Yes, sir.
I think you shared with me that you and Elizabeth meet with staff. What is it, second, third week of the month?
I think it's Elizabeth, that's the first week of the month, first
Right, we
Friday
have a
of every
standing-
month.
We have
Oh,
a
okay.
standing meeting for the first Friday of every month, although that didn't take place this last time. So part of maybe what we can do offline is to reschedule that.
I
so we can
forgot. That was
figure this
all
out.
on me. I forgot.
I'll
Well,
coordinate
Friday
with staff to set that up again.
Yeah, first Friday of
my-
every month.
Okay, well, our next meeting is afterward. I was just gonna recommend that a number of these organizational and internal issues may be something that may be more appropriate for yourself and for our vice chair to sit down and review and work through with staff.
Okay. All right, let's move on. There's nothing to vote on, as I understand it. Staffing update, I understand we have a new person on board, Jonathan.
Yep, Jonathan Mateen.
Mateen, thank you.
Mhm.
I had Jonathan, but I left out the Mateen.
Jonathan,
Jonathan,
how
you want
do
to
you
introduce
spell-
yourself to the commissioners? Yes?
Yep, I was recently hired. I'm Jonathan Mateen. I was recently hired as a city planner one. I work with Bill and zoning. So this is my first meeting, just trying to get my feet wet, understand how things are working, and hopefully I can get everything right and organized for you all. And
Nice.
Well, Jonathan, welcome aboard. Jonathan, how do you spell your last name?
that's Mateen.
Yep.
Mateen.
Yep.
Mhm.
And Jonathan,
Like
I know
Mateen Cleaves. Go ahead.
Oh,
Jonathan,
Exactly.
welcome aboard from Commissioner Jewell. And Jonathan, other staff or the department has submitted to us a paragraph or two about your background and interests, as well as contact information. Bill can probably review that with you, and that
Mhm.
might be helpful to forward to us.
okay, I can definitely get that done for you.
Yeah, Jonathan, looking forward to meeting you in person and doing all those good things. So welcome aboard,
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
okay? Just hang in. We will get this thing organized with your help, I'm sure.
I'll try my best.
All right.
Oh my
Looking forward to working with you.
That's a lot on one person's shoulders.
Hey.
It could be worse.
Jonathan is a heavy lifter.
I'm sorry.
Moving right along. Any resolutions? Okay, old business. Is Corey on board for the planning commission member orientation packet?
Yep, I'm here.
All right,
So the story is going to sound kind of old at this point, but I'm waiting on materials. So the new marijuana ordinances, we need the signed copies that don't say proposed in watermark. We're waiting on those before we can send out the orientation packets.
Okay.
okay.
And Mr. Chair, that is per my
Yeah.
request. Just to cover Corey a little bit. That's,
All right,
I don't want multiple versions floating around out there. I think that was the issue that we've discovered with 5169 and that change. So just to avoid multiple drafts hanging around out there, I want the packets to have the final signed executed version from council.
And I fully agree. So I'm working on my end to make sure that that happens.
okay. All right, not a problem.
Commissioner,
We'll just put that on the, just to keep it fresh, we'll put it on our next agenda,
Yep, no problem.
okay?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Jewell,
through you to Corey. Corey, have you been exploring how, once everything gets sent out to everybody, how to do a quote unquote review or overview session for us?
That is the plan, yes, to do a kind of training session.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thank you.
all right, next item. The I-475 meeting, I haven't heard anything. Bill?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Kelly?
we have Kalfani Stevens on the line. I think he wanted to address the commission on this.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
His name is Kalfani Stevens.
Okay,
Stevens, okay.
okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, good evening, Commission.
Good evening. Good, I
All
see.
right.
It says City of Flint. Yes.
Yeah, it's me. At some point, my phone dropped the call and then picked it back up. So, but it's
Okay.
me, Kalfani Stevens.
All right, Kalfani, go ahead.
All right. So, I'm the economic. We've talked before. Just as a reminder and as an introduction to Mateen, I am the Economic Development Director for the City of Flint, and I have recently started attending the 475 meetings, taking the place of Brian Larkin, who previously had been attending them. And so they are at the point now where MDOT is just beginning its reach out to the public to find out their public input into their potential redesign of 475. The plan as of today, right now, March 9th, as we speak, is that MDOT will be rebuilding 475. It's part of a multi-billion-dollar process to fix the roads. There are potential plans and research in the process to determine if 475 a portion of 475 inside of the city of Flint would be turned into a boulevard. That has not yet been decided. That study is not yet even complete. So that is why the current plan is to rebuild the road, so to speak, as status quo. Of course, there'll be minor upgrades and changes, but for the most part, you would see a resurfacing and rebuild of 475, unless, of course, the results of the boulevarding study come back, say that it's feasible and preferable, and at which point you would see requests and plans for that coming to the city to make a decision.
Okay, so right now, there's nothing concerning that boulevard other than a discussion.
That is correct.
And before anything is done in that area, they will have some more meetings, I'm sure, and some public input.
Oh, there will definitely be more meetings and public input. I know maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, they had their first public session input, and they've made it very clear that that was the first of many to come.
Okay, was that this? I think it was a clergyman and a business person, two business, like about 4 folks on that in that discussion.
I'm not sure who actually attended because I was not able to attend that meeting, so I'm not sure what
Okay.
their turnout was.
Okay, because I didn't hear anything about that one. Okay, all right.
So this is Commissioner Jordan.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here tonight, Kalfani. It's nice to have you here and to provide some of that additional background for it. So I definitely want to start out by thanking you for that. I also just, because I'm not sure what's been conveyed to you or not as part of the transition and taking on that new responsibility. But Chairman Wesley and I, along with Suzanne Wilcox, have been part of a meeting kind of towards the end of 2020 with Brian Larkin about 475. And there were some specific commitments made there in terms of making sure that Chairman Wesley, in his role as chair of the Planning Commission, as well as planning staff, would be included at the table as part of any of the ongoing meetings around the planning process for this. So not to put words in his mouth, but when the ... for Chairman Wesley saying that he hadn't heard about the meeting, I think the flip side of that is that the expectation that he would be included in any of the planning meetings, steering committee meetings around that moving forward. And I hope I'm not out of line in kind of spelling that out, but I'm not sure what you may or may not have been told as you took on the role.
No, that is, thank you for that information. And I can say that after I attended my first meeting, I did receive a request to get the planning commission specifically directly involved. So I have reached out to MDOT to ask, if the planning commission had been involved at all or not, which we already know, but just, hey, have you included them? Here's their information. And if you had not planned on including them, please contact me so we can discuss, why that is the case. I haven't received a response to that inquiry as of yet, but if I don't, hear something soon, I'll just reach out again to follow up with that same request.
That's appreciated. And Kalfani, you can get all my contact information from Bill or and contact me directly. I have not a problem with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jewell. Kalfani, thank you ever so much for the update and so forth. It may be appropriate, Mr. Chair, that you and Mr. Stevens have a conversation in light of the clarification that Commissioner Jordan provided prior to our next meeting on the 23rd, so that at our next meeting at the 23rd, both yourself, Mr. Chair, and you, Mr. Stevens, can give an update on clarification regarding role and responsibilities, particularly in light of the Planning Commission's role.
Well, I think that includes the planning staff also.
Correct. Correct.
Be involved.
Correct.
Happy to have whatever meeting the commissioners and the chair would like to have to try and move the state of planning in the city of Flint forward.
Okay, we can arrange that meeting. Bill, you still on? Bill, you gotta go cook dinner or what? Bill,
I'm mute. Am I
You-
unmuted?
you okay? You unmuted now?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
man.
taking a little answer.
I was talking about you. I was hoping you didn't hear me.
Yeah, I'm
Hey,
getting
Bill,
used to it now.
let's try to set up just a conversation between myself and the planning staff with Mr. Stevens, okay?
I can do that, and I'll get Mr. Stevens your contact information tomorrow morning too. So I'll set that up with
Okay.
him and you.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to new business change in the governor's order. Kelly, that's you?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. First, I wanted to circle back to one of the questions that came up before about expiration of site plans.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure this was included in this meeting. 50-8.3 of the existing zoning code. And then it's subsection I, expiration of approvals. The holder of an approved the plan, it's apparently a typo in our ordinance, must obtain a building permit from the city building official within 1 year after the date of issuance of the approved site plan. If such action is not taken within 1 year, the approved site plan can be void or shall be void, and a new site plan application and appropriate fee shall be required. The Planning Commission may extend the period of site plan approval on request for up to 1 year, provided a request for the extension is made before the site plan expires. So officially, site plan approval is good for 1 year. And they can ask for an extension prior to that 1 year expiration.
But this is a site plan approved with conditions.
With
So-
conditions, right?
Okay,
So I think I would go back to what I said before. If the commission had elected to put an expiration date
Expiration date on it.
or a deadline on those conditions being satisfied, I think that it would have been appropriate when the initial approval was made. So at this point, I mean, I think the commission has some options as far as inviting the applicant to come back and talk about where they are at in satisfying those conditions, what delays they've experienced, if any. And I could think of some more options and discuss that with the commission, but in terms of what the ordinance says, it is 1 year.
thank you for
Mr.
that.
Chair,
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, to Kelly, does that approval time clock kind of start with our approval or after the conditions are met and there was administrative review?
That's a great question. My interpretation would be that it starts as of the date of the approval, conditional or otherwise. That was the date of the commission's approval. So I think any conditions they would have to satisfy would be within that year time period.
This is Corey Christensen. That's how we've always read it in the past and acted, if that helps.
okay, sounds good.
So moving on then, Mr. Chair, to the COVID-19 restrictions on in-person gatherings. As of, and I'm looking at the michigan.gov website and their coronavirus page. So this is March 2nd, 2021 gatherings and face mask order. And scrolling down to, so it's section number 2, general capacity limitations at gatherings. The first one is indoor gatherings, and it says are prohibited at non-residential venues except where no more than 25 persons are gathered. So in person, in the context of planning commission meetings, it would be limited to up to 25 people. And that is with the social distancing, recognizing social distancing and being compliant with that. So I certainly have a recommendation. I am presenting this to the commission tonight because it's obviously your decision. But I think this does present some
limitations and potential issues as far as public attendance. Because of the number of commissioners, the number of staff that attend every meeting. And I know historically applicants come with quite a large posse of people, their own entourage. So I just, in terms of my recommendation, I'm reluctant to suggest that we go back to in-person meetings because we don't want to run into issues with members of the public having to be turned away because there's not enough space for them. And the Open Meetings Act doesn't say anything about first come, first serve. So that's my full speech.
Kelly, this is Corey. I have a
Yes.
question. So the guidance I've gotten from the attorneys in our company is that the executive order that allows for meetings online is still set to expire on March 31st, which means that after March 31st, it has to be in public. Is that your understanding?
I haven't heard anything about that. My boss hasn't told us anything about that.
Okay.
And it may be her understanding that that would be extended.
I think it probably will, but at this point, I don't believe it has.
And it just seems impractical that they wouldn't extend it if this 25-person in-person limitation is still in effect.
Right.
That's just not feasible for any public body, I don't think.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'm going to add this to my calendar to make sure that that I keep an eye on it.
Okay.
We have a counter at the door. We just lock the door, so you can't get in. Hey.
Yeah. And there's been discussions about having the body actually in person, you know, the members of each commission in person with staff, and then have Zoom for the public. So those are some options that we could discuss. But I'm kind of taking my supervisor, our chief legal officer, I'm taking her lead on it. She advises counsel. And so I take my marching orders from her. So she just said that if I share this with the commission, we can talk about our options. But as far as that 25-person limitation, particularly with social distancing having to be in place, I think that presents some issues for us.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Jordan. I definitely appreciate you sharing that information, Kelly, and Corey, to have the heads up about the potential extension of the executive order allowing us to meet remotely. I'll just say for my own self, I'm really glad that some folks are able to get vaccinated. I know I'm still a long way off from having my turn. And in my perception, we've been able to really have a lot of community involvement and facilitate the members of the public who want to speak through the remote format. So, talking with masks on in a muffly room is not necessarily an improvement in terms of being able to communicate with one another. So,
right,
for both until it's safe enough to not have to wear masks and be able to hear people clearly, and until folks have vaccines who want vaccines, I'm kind of the mindset to continue remote meetings.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Joel. Just for the record, I too am in agreement with us continuing via Zoom. It meets a variety of different opportunities for involvement, as well as meeting the intent of the Open Meetings Act. And Kelly, thank you for bringing that up, and looking forward to your follow-up on the extension scenario.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you. This is Commissioner Campbell, because I wouldn't be able to be there. So please, let's keep Zooming.
Commissioner Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to Zoom, we're going to Zoom. We'll Zoom as long as you want us to Zoom.
Should not have said that to you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, according to our bylaws, I think we have a section that allows, I'm going to use the word virtual connection for the commission.
Yeah, we started that some time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That was convenient timing.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything else?
Can I say something, Commissioner Wesley? Bill
You got
Vanderpuy.
another point of order, Bill. I'm gonna get you. Go
I
ahead,
didn't
Bill.
bring that word up again. I didn't bring it up. So,
Okay.
I want to just tell the commission, thank you for, especially to you, Commissioner Wesley, for the additional support through the commission and some of the members who know who I'm talking about, and guidance that's needed right now. And I appreciate it. I want you to know that. I want you to know I'm very grateful to have Jeff Shipman with us, the support of KZ, and now especially John. So I just want, all of you to know that I appreciate and want you to be recognized in the support in the different ways they've been providing to the zoning department. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
more than
welcome.
And I especially with Jonathan on board and Jeff, I know they're going to do great things. And KZ, Miss Tech, love her to death, buddy.
I love
Love her
that.
to death. And
Let's not
thank
forget we
each
have
and every
Kelly
one of
as
you
backup.
for joining us this evening, taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know. I really appreciate that too. Is there anything else for the good? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Kelly? Hang in there,
Yes,
kid.
Mr. Chair.
This fight is going to be good. Come on.
Well, I've got you guys on my side, so it's all
That's
All
good.
right. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Chair will
everyone.
entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Support.
It's voting report. Hey, once again, thanks everybody. Take care. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
you.
Everybody stay
Night
safe.
now.
Good night.
Everybody be safe.